Call to order the May 3rd meeting of the City Council. Please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Here.
Mr. Fritsch?
Here.
Mr. Knippel?
Here.
Mr. Schar?
Here.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Here.
And correction, approval of the City Council minutes for April 19th, 2016. We have a motion to approve as written.
And I have an addition.
You have an addition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Under miscellaneous licenses, when we spoke with the people from Quick Trip, I think the minutes should show that they said that they would put a lock on the beer case in the...
More than the broomstick, broom handle?
Right. And I went today, and the broomsticks are still there. And I'm not saying they have to have it done by today, but my reason for making the motion to approve it was based on that. So I wondered if we could add right after, second last line of the miscellaneous licenses, it says Craig Clausen and Todd Rutta answered council questions, and then I thought if we could add, they stated that it would not be a problem to put locks on the beer doors so they can be locked at 9 p.m. And then the rest of the motion and so forth, if that would be okay with
So
the rest of the
there's
council.
motion, a second to amend.
Second.
Second. Question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember it vividly, and I thought they said they'd look into it.
No, he said it would not be a problem. He said that we can just put a lock from the top down.
I think he said top down or chain or something.
Yeah.
He had the lock though.
Yeah, and the thing is otherwise I would not have made the motion to approve,
Okay.
because that was my reason. If he was willing to do that, I was willing to do that. Otherwise, we have to do it again, because I withdraw my motion. Ah.
So we have a motion to amend in a second. We take the vote on
Do you need that repeated?
the amendment.
Do you want me to repeat it?
If you could, that'd be...
Okay. They stated that it would not be a problem to put locks on the beer doors so they can be locked at 9 p.m.
9 p.m. or 8 p.m.?
It's 9, right?
It is 9?
Is it 9? It is 9, okay. And then that would go right after the word questions, period, before the motion.
Okay, thank you. Ready for vote?
Any other questions? Yeah. Motion second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Schar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
So we amended the minutes, and now you take the roll for approval. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All right, take the roll, please.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Schar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
It's done. Correspondence. Diane, you want to start?
I had some people talk with me about items that are on the agenda tonight, so I'll wait till those items come up to share those thoughts. And also worked with some of the city staff to take care of some issues in my ward. And that's been taken care of to everybody's approval, so I'm generally pretty pleased on that.
Are you doing that, or
No, Steve is.
Steve will do that? All right. Anything else? Mike?
It was very quiet for me. I didn't get any emails, and nobody called me, so.
No emails, no calls. And I too had some correspondence on things on the agenda we'll talk about in a while. Rudy?
Nope.
Doug?
No. Nope.
None? All right, we're moving on. Questions and public comment. Missy, can I ask you to read that, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Questions and public comment. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you are asked to hold your comments until the hearing. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided.
Anybody would like to?
Good evening. Patrick Doyle, 325 East Washington Street. Would like to make a couple comments concerning the change proposed in the vending code. I regret I was not able to be here at the last meeting. Unfortunately, we were called out of town, and I had communicated with the council members. I just would like to give a little history for those viewing on the events that have gone on in the last year. For the past 3 years, we were granted a vending license for riding a bicycle, ice cream bike through the city. Last spring, someone came to the hot dog stand with it highlighted in the vending code saying that was not permissible. We thought that was a new change, but after doing some research, that actually goes back to a change made in the vending code in 2008, saying that you could not vend on any city streets, sidewalks, or tree lawns, and apparently we shouldn't have been given that license, but it happened. I guess the change that did happen in 2014 was a change in the cost of the vending code, to getting a vending license. It went from $10 to $150. Anyways, after that, we had asked for a meeting with the park board, and we met with them and asked to be able to take a ice cream cart into Bartles Beach to sell there, and that was granted on a temporary basis, and it was restricted in that we could sell just ice cream, nothing else, no water, nothing other than actually ice cream. We did that for August and September, and then reported back to the park board in October, and you have that part of that is in the proposal I gave to the park board in October, and that's already, I would believe you have copies of that. It is in the agenda. And what we said there that was that it was extremely well received. People enjoyed having us there. However, only selling ice cream, people, every time we were there, people would ask, are you going to bring anything else? Are you going to bring anything to drink? Are you going to bring hot dogs? Anything of that nature. And we reported that to the park board. The other issue with Bartles Beach is it is extremely windy at times down there, and we brought back a possible proposal of putting a trailer in one parking slot next to the beach so it was convenient to them, and that was one slot would be used. And so that was given to them at that time. It was also brought up that this was not a money-making venture for us, that we looked at it as more providing a service to the community, providing hours in jobs to high school students, and trying not to lose money. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible last time. We did lose money on it, but it still was a positive venture. Every time we sold there, let me just finish that. In my mind, that was an opening discussion with the park board, and we left that meeting and they were going to discuss that. The next meeting in November I was not able to make, and was notified after that meeting that the park board at that November meeting had decided to recommend a change to the vendor code that you have in front of you for a second reading tonight, that basically says no one will be allowed to sell or vend in Bartles Park at any time, or in the area thereof. When I was told of that, I did ask Mr. Kirkevich if it would be possible to meet with the park board again prior to that actually going, that language being changed and going to the city council, and he said he would see what he could do with that. Unfortunately, that opportunity never happened, and I was contacted about a month ago letting me know that this was, the change in the vending code was coming to the city council, and if I wanted to come address the council, I should do that on April 19th. Unfortunately, we were out of town at a funeral that night, and we were not able to be here. Our experience there has been extremely positive. Again, I thought this was an opening conversation, not a proposal end-all, be-all at that point. If there are concerns, it would be, we would look forward to the opportunity to discussing those. We see this being a positive thing for the community. Comments we've gotten from people have been that their experiences at Bartles Beach were extremely, extremely positive growing up, and they would like the opportunity to share those experiences with their kids and their grandkids. A number of parents reflected that it would be much easier to come to the beach if food was available there. They would not have to pack up everything and come there like food is available at Sandy Beach at this time. Others also said that if it was available there, they would bike rather than taking their cars down there. It would just make it much more convenient for them. This is not about allowing Doyle's Dogs specifically to vend at Bartles Beach. This is about offering a service to the citizens and visitors of Lake Mills that would enhance their Bartles Beach experience. If you would like us to be part of a conversation that looks at how to best implement vending at Bartles Beach, we would be happy to be part of that conversation. We did post this. It was recommended to me that we should probably get people contacting the council if this was a concern or something they wanted to see in the community. We posted it on our Facebook page and the Lake Mills Community Network. I do have copies of the comments that were posted on our Facebook page. If you would like to see them, I can leave them for you.
Could we pass them down?
Sure. And these are not edited. This is everything that was on there, so you get to see everything there. Some are feasible, others may not be. But we wanted to get that input to you so decisions could be based on how the community saw things. And so I can leave those with you.
Maybe you could
Yes,
look
I
at
can bring
them.
those up.
So I'll look at it, pass it down. There's more than. Are they all the same?
They're all the same.
Oh, okay.
So there's copies for
Oh, that was nice, thank you.
Mr. Doyle, is there also a copy for the city clerk so she can keep it in her files?
Yes,
I-
there's one there. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
If you would like another copy, I can print that up.
I don't need one, but the city clerk does.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Molly Cisco. I live here in Lake Mills, and I'm a small business owner. And I came for two reasons tonight. One is to understand the rationale for why we can't have ice cream at Bartles Beach, or water or other snacks. It seems like kind of a simple thing, something that a lot of people would really enjoy, and ways of controlling it and monitoring it and creating policy around doesn't seem to be all that insurmountable. We're not asking for, people aren't asking for a big building to be built or massive traffic pattern changes. We're just talking about some ice cream at the beach for kids. So I'm really here to understand the rationale for why the recommendation is being made to not allow for this. The second thing is that, as I said, I'm a small business owner in Lake Mills, And I would like to see the city and our city officials do whatever they can to promote small business in this city. Kids need jobs. I get applications constantly from kids looking for work. Selling ice cream at the beach would be a great job for a teenager. We need opportunities. We need to create opportunities. It's sad that if you talk to people about Lake Mills, and you talk to people about small businesses and business in general in Lake Mills, the attitude is, it'll never happen. The city puts up barriers to small businesses to be promoted and to grow and to get started. This is a city that is not known for it to be welcoming to small businesses to get started. That's the word on the street. That's the image. Whether it's true or not, I can't say. But that's the image that we have here in this city. And that's a sad image. We need small businesses. We need more business. We need more taxes coming into our city. We need jobs. There are a lot of unemployed people in this town. And so maybe selling ice cream is just one tiny little help in this big economic problem that we have, but it's a start. And I would like to think that we live in a city that figures out how to make things happen instead of promoting barriers to shutting things down. So those are the two reasons I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Is there anyone else who'd like to approach? All right. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to the city manager's report.
Tonight, basically, what I have is appointments. You'll see the letter from Craig LaFleur, who is currently on the Housing Authority, is resigning, and they've recommended Mary Peschel, whose application is in there. She is a member, she is a resident of the Rock Lake Housing Authority, and it has come to our attention that they need to have a member on the board. So she meets that qualification. Teresa Rassi is also reapplied to be appointed, so I'm appointing her, and then I'm appointing Beverly Farnsworth to the Police and Fire Commission. I also have information here on awards that were given out recently to Dave Grumman for his work with the PSAs for the Farmers Market and the Capital Improvement Program, and the Astelin Days. So you can see that Dave received several awards. I think you all have copies of that. So you can see, and here's the other one. Kind of snickered at this one. This one included Dwayne and Paul Hermanson. And then this one Dave did with Katie Otto and Ed Grundon. And then this one here he did, or the other one he did with, have you seen his recent one with Troy from the police department? They did one on texting. I see that's pretty popular, and Dave said that one went pretty well too, so. That's all I have.
The 5-year plan, that was excellent. Yeah, good job, Dave.
Had good music too, right, Dave? Any questions or anything?
Else to add or anything for Steve? If not, all right, we'll move on. We'll accept the minutes. We have Parks Board minutes for November 18th, 2015. The Plan Commission minutes for February 23rd, 2016. Housing Authority minutes for March 22nd, 2016. And the Library Board minutes for March 21st of this year will all go on record. Council business. We have actually a lot of committee board appointments as well. Anybody object if we did that as a group, or should we break them up? Is the group okay with everyone? Do we have any objections? No objections? Missy, could you read the entire group, please?
Plan Commission, Steve Holman and Ken Pearson. Public Works Board, Mark Pickard. Parks Board, Timothy Sprecher. Library Board, Eric Beaver and Sean Bowling. Joint Rock Lake Committee, Glenn Zastro. Board of Review, Josh Shoemaker. Zoning Board of Appeals, Bill Hartwig. Economic Development Commission, Carol Burrows. Ethics Board, Randall Radke.
We have a motion to confirm these appointments.
So moved.
A second? Second. And any discussion? Or we take a vote? Just call the roll, please.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, and two things. One, I'd like to thank all the folks on this list and a lot of others who volunteer their time for this community. It's what makes Lake Mills the community that I moved to. I love this place because of the people that volunteer and give their time to make it a good city. Along with that, we're gonna also do a couple others. We're gonna have also going to confirm Pam Lazaris to continue as chair of the Plan Commission. Vicki Wycliffe to continue on as chair of the Parks Board. Todd Temperley to continue as chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And council appointments, Doug will actually be taking on, he is on the Public Works Board now, but will be the council rep. Rudy will be moving to the Library Board. I will continue on the Parks Board. Mike will continue on the Plan Commission. Diane Fritsch will be our council rep for the Economic Development Committee and also the liaison for Main Street. And I believe that's all of them, so. Tavern operators licenses is next. Again, anyone have an objection to doing both of these at the same time? Hearing none, could you read the names, please?
Daniel Sicharski and Francisco Hernandez.
Looking for a motion to grant a tavern operator's license.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
And vote, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Discussion of Lake Mills Cars and Coffee application, special event. And Steve, you want to take that one? Anything, it's getting bigger. Or actually, should we read the motion first?
Yes,
Yeah, can we
please read the motion first.
City Council Motion 16-5-1-1, authorizing the temporary encroachment of Church and Campus Street right-of-way by Randy Stenson for Cars and Coffee. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, pursuant to authority conferred by statutes of the State of Wisconsin, has established certain standards and procedures for use of right-of-ways within the corporate limits of the City of Lake Mills. And whereas Randy Stenson, 119 Church Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, has requested that the City Council consider allowing a temporary encroachment of Church Street parking lot and Church Street from Lake to Campus and a portion of Campus Street as indicated in the attached request. And whereas the city manager and city staff have reviewed the proposed request, and whereas the City Council has reviewed the information submitted and has considered the information regarding the subject, be it therefore moved this third day of May 2016 by the City of Lake Mills Council that Section 1, Randy Stenson, on behalf of Cars and Coffee, 119 Church Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, is authorized to temporarily encroach upon the right-of-way of Church Street from Lake to Campus and a portion of Campus Street as indicated in the attached request. Section 2, that the city manager is authorized to take such actions as necessary to implement and administer said street encroachment. Section 3, that the city clerk is directed to send a copy of this motion to Randy Stenson, 119 Church Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, 53551. The City Council does hereby approve the temporary encroachment upon the right-of-way of Church Street from Lake to Campus, a portion of Campus Street, and a portion of the Church Street parking lot adjacent to Church Street, as shown on the attached map, and authorizes the council president to sign the motion.
All right. We have a motion to adopt motion 16-511.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, and Steve, yeah, this is getting big, isn't it?
Yeah, they already held one this year under the, my authority to issue a permit, because they do multiples, they need council permission. It was set up and worked fine. They had adequate barricades,
Okay.
didn't block any fire hydrants, seemed to have a standard working process that we've developed over the years. I note, and Troy is here tonight, are you going to use the whole parking lot?
Yeah, the map kind of looked like it was
Yeah.
getting, it was getting big.
Historically, it's been everything to the west end of the parking lot. Do you use it as spots are available, or do you block them off at some point in time? Spots is available. Okay, then I feel comfortable with that.
So I know in the past, we've had some complaints, and we had talked about monitoring that. Have you received any complaints in the past year?
I have not. Generally, the one gentleman at the end of Church and Campus Street there, he has complained about being able to have access. They have provided him access, and you can see that they use the south side, not the north side, and he can access in and out. So I haven't heard any complaints recently, but he does off and on complain about the number of people, and they're sitting in his yard, and they're doing things there that, but generally it's been, he's the only one that's complained, and I haven't heard anything in the last year.
Okay.
Any other questions? A motion, second, and call the roll.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Next, resolution 1613, conditional use. Can we, Tim Messer, can we have that read, please?
Resolution 16-13, conditional use permit declarations and findings, Esser Properties, 1022 Mulberry Street. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, pursuant to the authority conferred by the statutes of the state of Wisconsin, has established certain standards and procedures for the use of land and zoning within the corporate limits of the City of Lake Mills. And whereas the City of Lake Mills Title 10 zoning code has certain requirements for conditional uses in zoning districts, and whereas the owner, Esser Properties, of subject site described in the application incorporated herein by reference, has requested that a conditional use permit be granted to allow for commercial use in a planned industrial district, and whereas the city manager, consultants, and city staff have reviewed the application documents submitted and have made recommendations concerning approval of said amendment subject, and whereas a public hearing concerning the requested conditional use permit was held on April 26, 2016, after due notice to solicit testimony from the public, and whereas the Plan Commission has met and reviewed the evidence and testimony submitted thus far and has considered all of the available factual evidence concerning the requested action and recommended conditional approval to the City Council. Be it therefore resolved this third day of May 2016 by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills that A, the City Council does hereby approve granting said conditional use permit for the subject site with the following conditions. 1, the conditional use permit will not be authorized and the site plan not deemed approved until the site plan meets all requirements of the ordinance as required by City Code. 2, the conditional use permit shall be restricted to the portion of the building in which subject conditional use will be constructed as depicted in the floor plan. B, the City Council does hereby confirm the following findings of fact regarding the requested conditional use. The establishment, maintenance, and operation of the proposed conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. 2, the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted or substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood. The establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. 4, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or other necessary facilities will be provided. 5, adequate measures will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public street. 6, the conditional use shall in all respects conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located. 7, the proposed conditional use as it's at its proposed location is in harmony with the purposes, goals, objectives, policies, and standards of the City of Lake Mills Comprehensive Plan. 8, the potential public benefits of the proposed conditional use outweigh any and all potential adverse impacts of the proposed conditional use. C, the City Council does hereby authorize the Council President to sign the resolution for approval.
And discussion on this one? Oh, motion to adopt Resolution 1613, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second? All right. And Steve?
The Plan Commission reviewed it and made a recommendation to approve. It's in an industrial area, but it's actually in an area that's kind of mixed use, both industrial and commercial. It has recently been used for both industrial and commercial uses, and so the Plan Commission and city staff find that this is an appropriate use in the area and recommend approval.
Is this the property across from the clinic?
Yes.
Okay, okay, I got it.
And
Didn't it was a warehouse, wasn't
It's
it?
only,
They have many warehouses in the back, and in the front, there was the, I think it was Tempest or something like, Temple and Car
Car,
Repair, and
yeah.
then they had auto parts sales.
Okay.
And so it's been both kind of a commercial operation and a storage, so, yeah, it's consistent with the use, and you have Havercates down there and several other, you have the restaurant, so it's not inconsistent, and it's at an area where the residential and the commercial break up, so it's,
yeah. And in the,
anything special, or what was?
during the Plan Commission, we talked about making sure the wording got in there that it's just for that one specific part of the building and not the whole building overall, because there could be other uses for the other part of the building. So it's basically brought down to that one section in the first floor, so.
Okay.
And that's per Tim Esser's
Esser's
design,
request.
yeah.
All right. Further discussion? Call the vote, please.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Resolution 1614, general obligation bonds. Can we have that read, please?
Resolution number 16-14, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,345,000 for street improvement projects. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,345,000 for the public purpose of financing street improvement projects.
All right, a motion to adopt Resolution 1614,
So moved.
second?
Second.
All right, and the floor is going to be yours for a while, by the way, so.
Yes, we have quite a few. We have John Cameron here from our
Okay.
financial consultants, Ellers.
Good evening.
Does everyone have a copy of the 2016 proposed finance plan? Or,
It's probably on here.
That didn't come soon enough to get in the packet.
okay,
Is it, it's not on here? Okay. Dog ate mine.
sounds good.
Did you get it in the email, Steve?
Thank you.
Thanks. 14, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know you have a number of resolutions that cover the financing plan in total. If you look really, the first page beyond the cover page, what it shows is kind of your base finance plan as it exists currently in terms of your outstanding general obligation debt. So in the year 2016, your total debt service payments are for general obligation debt are approximately $1.8 million. That is abated by a number of different sources, so the amount that actually hits the levy in 2016 is $1.162 million. If you look at the second to last column in, I'll call that tan. So with your existing equalized value, that yields a tax rate for debt of $2.50 per thousand. So that is your existing tax rate related to your outstanding debt. So just a starting spot as we talk forward in terms of looking at this proposed financing.
Before we go any further, you lost me on the starting spot. So could Steve point on there where, what?
Sure.
we're-
So if you look at, just to walk you through that page, if you look at the first column in tan, you see it says existing payments.
Yep.
Okay, so those are your existing outstanding debt service payments by year,
Okay.
going out through the year 2033. Then the columns that have the numbers in red brackets, those are offsetting payment sources. So of that total debt service payment, you have a number of sources primarily within your TIF districts that offset that debt payment, meaning they're making their own debt service payments. So the next column where it says city portion / tax levy, that's the amount that actually, of your general obligation debt that actually hits the levy by year. And then your equalized value is in the next column, and we've got it projected out through 2035. And then the corresponding tax rate that would go with that, where you divide the debt service payment by the equalized value to yield the rate.
Okay.
So right now, it's at $2.50, and it stays stable next year, and it starts to then decline as your debt service starts to drop off.
Thank you.
Sure. So looking at the future in terms of what we're actually talking about this evening for financing, and we've got a few different options for the general obligation portion. It doesn't change anything with the resolutions in terms of the size, but really just the length of time that we take the financing over. So there's two different issues. So the resolutions, we have to, by statute with bonds, you have to state each purpose. So streets, parks, the dam, as well as the tax incremental financing projects. So that all comes into the first debt issuance that you see at the very bottom in terms of net bond size, if you look at that very bottom column. So the general obligation debt issuance would be $3,155,000 as proposed, and that would pick up all of your 2016 capital improvement projects that are shown at the very top of the page, starting with streets, then parks, and then the Park Place, and then the dam, and then the TIF-related projects. On the utility side, you see preliminary column that says preliminary revenue, and with those, the primary purpose of the revenue bond issue is to refund the 2009 revenue bonds, and that would be as an advance refunding, and then also to do a current refunding of the 2013 revenue bank note, which really has a balloon payment coming up in a couple of years. So, now is the opportunity to refinance that debt and lock that in long term. So the debt issuance also has just a small amount of new money. Most of that is just refinancing your existing debt, but a small amount of new money related to water projects at $323,000. So the total size for the revenue bond would be $4,610,000. Any questions on that page before I go on?
There is one item on there that was $185,000 that will be reduced by $49,000.
This includes the new roof on,
Yes, but what I'm looking at is there's this $185,000 here um,
Oh, okay, did,
for East Lake Park Place.
okay. Right,
The
gotcha.
145?
Oh, you've got that 145, so that's the right
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
So you've already got that reduced. And
Oh,
that,
okay.
that one is 185. That
Oh.
should actually be 194.
Yeah.
I think we'll just pay that out of the regular.
Right.
All right,
Right. We were gonna leave that at this point.
all right.
If you go to the next page, what it shows is really like I said, with the general obligation, we've got just two different options to kind of present tonight, and I think what we'd be looking for is direction in terms of which option to go with, and it doesn't change the size of the debt issue, but it really talks about the length of time that you'll be financing the debt over. So the first page here shows the proposed financing over a 20-year period. The second option would be over a shorter time period at 15 years. I think historically, the city has been a little bit more aggressive in terms of paying off its debt over a shorter period of time. But you do also have other projects coming down the mill over the next couple of years to consider in terms of how that then structures into this particular issue in your overall tax rate. So we'll talk through it here. So you see the existing levy coming down to the first column in tan, and then the next three columns in beige would be the proposed debt issuance of the $3,155,000 of general obligation debt. So this would be over the 20-year period. So you see your total debt service payments going from $1,162,000 to $1,386,000 in 2017, and then $1,256,000, and you can see it on down the page. For the new debt that's being added, there are some abatement sources with TID 3 and TID 4 corresponding with those related project costs. So the amount that actually hits the levy would be $1,162,000 in 2016, and then $1,245,000, $062 in 2017, and you can see it then flow on down the page for the future year's debt service payments. So the tax rate would go from $2.50 a thousand in 16 to $2.65 a thousand in 17, and then start to come back down again as your existing debt drops off. If you contrast that with the following page, that would show you it over a 15-year period. So basically, you're knocking 5 years off the bond issue and paying it off earlier than in the first scenario. So you can see, a little bit of a different change. I think really, if you're going to look at it, you would look at the tax rate impact between this page and the last page as you contrast. So not a huge difference in the first few years. It does jump up a little bit thereon after. So I guess some things to consider about is, the projects that you have coming up in 2017 and 18, and then Mulberry Street, proposed in 2019, and how that would kind of wrap in there as well. One thing to point out here is that the debt that we would propose to have this rated, as your existing debt is with Moody's, if you look at it from a rating, purely from a rating standpoint, having it amortized over a shorter period of time is a little bit more favorable with the rating agency, but we're not talking about a huge swing. We're not talking about 10 versus 20. We're talking about 15 versus 20. So, food for thought. I don't necessarily think that we have a real strong opinion here in either direction. Any questions on that?
I have one for Steve, what's the staff recommendation on that?
Betsy and I talked, and we felt 15 on the general and 20 on the revenue.
Yeah, it's $200,000 difference.
Yeah, it does make a difference in terms of the interest, the overall level of interest between the two options.
300,000.
We'd have done the same thing with water if we'd had the money.
200 for the interest. Yeah, it's about 200.
If there are no other questions on the GO, and just the last two pages talk about last few pages deal with the revenue side. So the next page is your outstanding debt associated with all of your utilities. So total principal and interest payments going from left to right, you have a Clean Water Fund loan, there's the '07 revenue bonds, '09 bonds, the 2013 revenue bonds, and then the 2014 revenue bonds. So total principal and interest payment on an annual basis, if you look at the column towards the end that says principal and interest, are about $830,000 a year. It does jump up in 2020, but that again is because of that bank note that comes up and then starts to come back down. If you look at the next page, the next page is essentially the same page, but with the proposed debt structured in. So it really levels off your existing payment, gets rid of that balloon payment with the bank note, as well as adding in, you know, the smaller amount of new money dealing with the water project. The other thing with this is, because these are revenue bonds, they're backed by revenues from utility rates, so electric rates, water rates, sewer rates, with their respective debt issuances. When we group them together, we have to look at revenue bond coverage and make sure that the coverage is met through the life of your existing debt, as well as adequate enough to handle any new debt that you would take on. And that coverage threshold is, it's an annual calculation, and it's 1.25 times your outstanding revenue bond debt service payments. And the way that it's calculated is you take your total revenues coming in minus your cash expenses, so operating and maintenance expenses, not including depreciation, not including the payment that the water utility makes to the general fund. That net before you make your debt service payments has to be 1.25 times the annual debt service payments on all outstanding revenue bonds plus what you're proposing to take on. And that's shown on the very last, the debt service coverage is shown on the very last column. It's impossible to read on screen unless you have like really good eyesight. But on the page, it's quite well. So, you know, the threshold, like I said, is 1.25 times. You're several times above that. You're about 2.5 times above it. So that's in a very good position. So no concerns that way. In terms of the savings with the refunding bonds, if you look at the next page, the primary purpose again for the revenue side of it is to refinance existing debt. So you can see the savings on an annual basis that's projected. Again, we won't know the final results until the actual day of the sale, but you can see there's a fair amount of savings that are projected annually, a total of about $138,000 over the remaining life of the debt. This doesn't stretch it out for this debt issuance. On a net present value basis, it's about $115,000. And when we look at the feasibility of refinancings, we're looking at, you know, what is that net present value, and you know, this certainly fits the bill. And then the final page is the takeout of the bank note. And you can see that the bank note itself goes out through 2020. There's a balloon payment in 2020, so it's really something that, given existing interest rates, something that you'd want to clean up and take care of with this financing. So it's included here as well, and the new debt service would go out through 2029 on that.
You missing that one?
Any questions on that?
Back page. Do we need to put option 1 or 2 on this, or for the terms?
Yes, if it,
I don't see a spot.
did,
You're talking about
the resolution.
15 years or
Yeah,
20
yeah.
years?
I didn't see a spot on there on the resolution at all. I didn't know if you needed it on there.
Yeah, I think you should, don't you, Vicki?
Would that be at the last resolution with the,
Yeah, that should be on.
155?
It's,
Current,
it is, from bond council's standpoint, it's not a
It's
not a
something-
requirement, but I think just from our standpoint, it's something we'd want to know as we structure it going into the sale. But it's up to you if you want to include that in there or not.
we might want to take things one thing at a time and start with Resolution 1614, and then work on down through them, because that's where we are agenda-wise.
And I think that at the time that they actually do the sale, we know that we're gonna look at the 15 and the 20.
Sure, yeah, and that's fine.
And then you guys will approve it when it actually sells.
All right. So right now, we have 1614, we had a motion, a second, discussion. Call the vote.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, and then move on to another exciting 1615, please.
Resolution number 16-15, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $425,000 for parks and public grounds projects. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $425,000 for the public purpose of financing parks and public grounds projects.
Do we have a motion to adopt resolution 1615?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, and again,
Steve, this is for the building
These,
or or the,
Right, right. This one and
so we
the
skipped
next one.
16, did we do 1614?
Yeah, 1615 and
1615 is
1616 are both for
the
the
building.
parks.
Yep,
Yeah, it's just
why that
split between
number's
the
different.
parks portion and the streets
right,
portion.
by the state statute, you gotta specify
split
which
'em.
portion goes to which debt. So part of it's going to Public Works, part of it's going to Parks and Rec.
Parks and Grounds, all right. And anything else? All right, call the vote, please.
Mr. Shar?
aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Now, 1616, please.
Resolution 16-16, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $425,000 for the construction of a building for the housing of machinery and equipment. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $425,000 for the public purpose of financing the construction of a building for the housing of machinery and equipment.
All right, we have a motion to adopt 1616.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, and this one, anything special we need to know
Just trying to match these up
as we go down?
as we go down. And I see in the sizing, if this is Parks and Recreation and DPW facility, in the sizing document, it has 825. And then these two resolutions, it equals 850.
I assume that's a portion of the cost for
Yes.
issuing bonds.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You actually are borrowing a certain amount, and then you have to have the cost for issuing the bonds.
Right.
Okay, so that's where the issuance
Cost is going.
costs,
Yeah,
it's
they'll
down
divide
in
that
there,
amongst each.
inside the,
Right, it's allocated percentage-wise
okay,
between
gotcha.
each one.
Percentage, okay.
Okay, makes sense.
Any questions? All right, call the vote, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Didn't hear you.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
And 1617, please.
Resolution 16-17, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for river improvements. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the public purpose of financing river improvements consisting of a dam replacement project.
All right, motion to adopt 1617.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All right, anything else?
same question. This one's 30,000, and the resolution's exactly 30,000.
It was so small, it wasn't worth Trying to figure out how much to
Trying to
assign
adopt
to
it and change it?
Okay.
All right. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
1618, please.
Resolution number 16-18, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $930,000 for community development projects in tax incremental district numbers 3 and 4. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $930,000 for the public purpose of providing financial assistance to community development projects under Section 66.1105 Wisconsin statutes in the city's tax incremental district numbers 3 and 4.
All right, we have a motion to adopt 1618.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, where'd that one come in? Any other? 1679. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, and 1619, please.
Resolution number 16-19, resolution directing publication of notices to electors relating to bond issues, whereas initial resolutions authorizing general obligation bonds have been adopted by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, and it is now necessary that said initial resolutions be published to afford notice to the residents of the city of their adoption. Now therefore be it resolved that the city clerk shall, within 15 days, publish a notice to the electors in substantially the form attached hereto in the official city newspaper as a Class 1 notice under Chapter 985 Wisconsin statutes.
Motion to adopt Resolution 1619, please.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And standard, call the vote, please.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, and 1620, please. Very good.
Resolution number 16-20, resolution providing for the sale of $3,155,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds, whereas the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin has adopted initial resolutions authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds for the following public purposes and in the following amounts: $1,345,000 for street improvement projects, $425,000 for parks and public grounds projects, $425,000 for the construction of a building for the housing of machinery and equipment, $30,000 for river improvements, and $930,000 for community development projects in tax incremental district numbers 3 and 4. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills that Section 1, combination of issues, the issues referred to above are hereby combined into one issue of bonds designated general obligation corporate purpose bonds, and the city shall issue bonds in the amount not to exceed $3,155,000 for the purposes above specified. Section 2, sale of the bonds. The City Council hereby authorizes and directs that the bonds be offered for public sale. At a subsequent meeting, the City Council shall consider such bids for the bonds as may have been received and take action thereon. Section 3, notice of sale. The city clerk, in consultation with the city's financial advisor, Ellers and Associates, Inc., is hereby authorized and directed to cause the sale of the bonds to be publicized at such times and in such matter as the city clerk may determine, and to cause copies of a complete official notice of sale and other pertinent data to be forwarded to interested bidders as the city clerk may determine. Section 4, official statement. The city clerk, in consultation with Ellers, shall also cause an official statement to be prepared and distributed. The appropriate city officials shall determine when the official statement is final for purposes of Securities and Exchange Commission Rule 15C2-12, and shall certify said statement, such certification to constitute full authorization of such statement under this resolution.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Second, all right. And anything special you want to say, or are we just going? Pretty much?
No, it's all right, I think it's already been covered.
All right.
I was kind of curious, what was the rate at last year for 2015 with our debt?
A little bit higher than where rates are right now, I would say. But
Yeah, based on the tax rate, because you have the 250 if we go with this.
oh, you mean the overall tax rate or the?
That's what I
I'm sorry, I thought you meant interest
Nope,
rates.
That's why I wanted to clarify myself. I didn't
Oh.
want you searching for.
Searching for a rate.
The 2015 rate I don't have, but we could pull it pretty easily.
It's included in the base rate there already, though.
Well, we start with this year.
Yeah, we started with 2016.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious what 2015 was to see what the difference is going to be.
Well, 2015 is in 2016, that's when it first hits.
What
So
did-
you're talking 2014?
Yeah, whatever,
What would have been the
whatever
one
your taxes
previous?
were based on for the last year that you paid. Was it lower than 250 and by how much?
Based on the work that I've done, it's about 3.3% higher.
So even taking these out, it won't raise what people are paying per thousand based on their property values.
By how much? It'll be about 3.3 to 3.5% more than it was the year ago.
Okay, so, okay, that's what I was getting at.
That's the question?
Yep. Just so everybody knows that.
You're looking at, it's hard to separate because when we do the rate, we don't separate. But based on the budget constructed for next year along with the debt, it's about $38
Okay,
per average residence.
okay.
All right.
That's what I was getting at.
Anything else?
Oh.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
1622.
21.
21, please, sorry.
Resolution number 16-21, resolution providing for the sale of $4,610,000 sewerage system and light and water utility mortgage revenue bonds, whereas the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, is presently in need of approximately $4,610,000 for public purposes, including refunding obligations issued to finance additions, extensions, and improvements to the city's sewerage system and light and water utility, and financing additions, extensions, and improvements to the system. And whereas it is desirable to borrow said funds through the issuance of sewerage systems and light and water utility mortgage revenue bonds pursuant to Section 66.0621 with stats. Now therefore be it resolved that Section 1, the bonds, the city shall issue its sewerage system and light and water utility mortgage revenue bonds in the approximate amount of $4,610,000 for the purposes mentioned above. Section 2, sale of bonds, the city council hereby authorizes and directs that the bonds be offered for public sale. At a subsequent meeting, the city council shall consider such bids or proposals for the bonds as may have been received and take action thereon. Section 3, notice of sale, the city clerk in consultation with the city's financial advisors, Ellers and Associates, Inc., is hereby authorized and directed to cause the sale of the bonds to be publicized at such times and in such manner as the city clerk may determine, and to cause copies of a complete official notice of sale and other pertinent data to be forwarded to interested bidders that the city clerk may determine. Section 4, official statement. The city clerk, in consultation with Ellers, shall also cause an official statement to be prepared and distributed. The appropriate city officials shall determine when the official statement is final for purposes of Securities and Exchange Commission Rule 15C 2-12, and shall certify said statement, such certification to constitute full authorization of such statement under this resolution.
And motion to adopt,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All right, and should we call the vote, please?
Oh.
Or do you have a?
Just a note so everybody knows, I know it was mentioned here previously, but the majority of this money is being used to refinance previous debt. So I'd say like 85% of it.
Yeah, more than that,
Yeah, 85, 90%?
90.
Yeah, of previous debt, so we get better rates and able to manage the debt better.
Save some money.
Yeah, okay.
Call the vote.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
1622, please.
Resolution 16-22, authorizing the city manager to sign contract with Wisconsin Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection. Whereas the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection deems it advisable to engage the professional services of the contractor to carry out DATCP responsibility pursuant to WISSTAT Section 168.25 and WIS Admin Code Section ATCP 93.110 is an agent of the DATCP, and it appears that such services can be performed more economically and efficiently under a contract to accomplish the requirements of the DATCP. And whereas the city has the trained inspectors with a willingness and professional capability to provide the required professional services to the DATCP, and whereas the city desires to enter into an agreement with the DATCP as set forth in the attached agreement, and whereas Lake Mills administrative staff has recommended that the agreement be approved in its current form, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills does hereby approve the agreement to provide local program operator services to DATCP. Be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills approves the contract with Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection to provide the professional services set forth in the attached contract.
And motion to adopt 1622.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, and Steve, this is required stuff, isn't it? I mean,
I don't think we have to do it. It's just a
Contract out?
benefit to the community that we inspect the tanks and stay on top of it because they get a better turnover in the time. Because if a state employee or a contracted employee had to come out, it would take a lot longer. And our people have a better idea of what's out there and what's occurring, and they can turn the inspections over faster.
Is there any monetary?
Yeah, they give us about, I think about 17,000 a year.
And they be in the state?
The state.
DATC, okay.
Right.
any other discussion?
Somebody's gonna get it, might as well be us.
There you go. And call the vote, please.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
We are on ordinance 1163. Sewer. And it's third reading, so we should probably read the whole thing.
Ordinance 1163, amending sanitary sewer impact fees. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. Section 1, Section 7-11-4-E, impact fee revenue administration of the Lake Mills Municipal Code is amended by adding the language as shown in bold type and deleting the language as shown with strike through. Section D, the sanitary sewer impact fee that was originally imposed under this ordinance was created when Ordinance 709A became effective on June 15, 1995. The sanitary sewer impact fee was amended through the adoption of Ordinance 1163 in May 2016, which ended the original sanitary sewer impact fee and which established new sanitary sewer impact fees and impact fee zones. The water impact fee imposed under this ordinance was created when Ordinance 709A became effective on June 15, 1995. The park facilities impact fee imposed under this ordinance was created when Ordinance 709A became effective on June 15, 1995. The community center impact fee imposed under this ordinance was created when Ordinance 738 became effective on April 25, 1996. Section 2, Section 7-11-8, sanitary sewer impact fees of the Lake Mills Municipal Code is amended by adding the language as shown in bold type and deleting the language as shown with strike through. 7-11-8, sanitary sewer impact fees. The basis for the imposition of sanitary sewer impact fees and the establishment of sanitary sewer impact fee zones is the Sanitary Sewer Public Facilities Needs Assessment and Impact Fee Study Update prepared for the City of Lake Mills in December 2015, and which is on file in the Office of the City Clerk. The sanitary sewer impact fees are shown below for each impact fee zone, which are generally depicted in the impact fee zones map 2, which is incorporated here and by reference. The sanitary sewer impact fees are subject to annual adjustments based on the Consumer Price Index and are to be paid in accordance with Section 7-11-6. The original unadjusted sanitary sewer impact fees are shown in paragraphs A through E and are updated each July by resolution of the council. Each dwelling unit in a multifamily structure shall be treated as an individual 1-inch connection. A, red zone, would be the meter size and then the impact fee. 5/8 inch, 770, 3/4 inch, 770, 1 inch, 1,284, 1 1/4 inches, 1,798, 1.5 inches, 2,311, 2 inches, 3,467, 3 inches, $6,035, 4 inches, 9,501. Greater than 4 inches is as determined by the Public Works Board. B, yellow zone.
Yeah, do we have to go through all the pipe sizes, or can we kind of skip that? You all right?
I don't think that technically you're required to have a full reading at your third reading. We could summarize it. That might go a little bit easier for the public to understand what it is you're doing. I'd be happy to provide a
Yeah,
summary.
could you do that instead of, I
Okay.
mean, you don't, rather than, and I'll save you some.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, there are several zones that are shown on the map, and they're colored zones, and they are red, yellow, purple, blue, and then all other areas is something that's not a colored zone. And essentially, the impact fee is, by and large, being reduced through this change in the sewer impact fee study. The impact fee zones, however, aren't all being reduced. But the all other areas, that's the area that is the biggest area, has by far the smallest impact fee. It's down to $96, where it used to be roughly about $1,200. The reason it's down is because their impact fees used to be based on when we have to add an oxidation ditch and a clarifier at the treatment plant. That's no longer really in the cards because there isn't enough usage of sanitary sewer. What really this is doing is dealing with the various places within our sanitary sewer system area that need extra help. They might need lift stations being repaired or lift stations being built, or it might be force mains. There are individual costs for individual areas, and that's why we have the different zones. It's something that the Public Works Board has gone through and made recommendations on, and that's basically all that's going on here is we're setting up the impact fees differently under different zones so that the zone that's creating the most cost because of growth will pay the most. The ones that aren't creating any additional costs because of growth won't be paying anywhere near as much. And it's deemed to be more fair and equitable that way.
All right. And this will be posted, right, online too? Anybody wants to see all the different pipe sizes and different mods, that'll be fine, right?
Yes.
And it only
affects the
pertains to new construction.
Right. If it's not going to cost anybody anything if they aren't building new or expanding or somehow using more sanitary sewer because of something that they're doing with their piping. So this is just to make the areas that are impacted because of growth, it's the growth-related changes that causes the impact fee. If nobody's making any change at their house, they don't even have to be concerned about the fee.
All right. So we had the reading, did we get a motion second already, or, no, all right, you get a motion to adopt ordinance 1163.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Call the vote, please.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
And second reading, ordinance 1164.
Did tell you.
Actually, yeah. She's-
Do we want to suspend the rules and ask any questions since?
Making a motion to do so?
I would, yeah, if any of us have questions or if Mr. Doyle has questions.
All right, can we read the title, 1164, please?
Ordinance 1164, amending vendor's license.
Motion to
Make a
amend?
motion
And do we have
to-
a second?
Second.
All right, second. Pat, you want to step up if anybody's got questions?
You first have to have a
Oh,
roll
I'm
call
sorry,
vote.
we have to have a vote. I was in a hurry to get Pat up here. He's been sitting a while.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Sorry about that. And, yep, questions?
So the first question I have that a lot of folks have brought up is, what was behind the thought of not allowing it by the Parks Department?
Well, we actually had, and, I mean, Pat came in and asked for a license for ice cream only. And we had a discussion, and we asked him, we said, you know what, that's fine. Will you come back and talk to us next year? Tell us what you found out. What do you think? You know, and he came back, his report is in here. And actually, Pat's report's part of what we looked at. I mean, we tried to understand all the stakeholders involved from, you know, the history of it, you know, what families use it, people cleaning it, whatever, everybody involved, all the stakeholders. And there are some families that go down there and really they go there because they don't want a volleyball court behind them. They don't want a lot of commotion. They don't want their kids going, hey, I want to run over, give me money for the bait store, I want to buy candy, or I want that. They go there. They take a picnic, they sit down. There's that aspect too. Looking at the history, I know 30 years ago, that was a great place to do some vending. The building was set up for it. They could open the window. You know, it was very inviting. People could walk up and get it. And, you know, as you look through even Pat's presentation, a business should be allowed to make money. And I know he didn't make money on the ice cream cart. So then part of what Parks was thinking is, okay, well, if Pat wants to, let's say, only be there certain hours a day or a weekend or whatever, well, then how many vendors do we allow to do that? 6, 10, 15? Is it, you know, a hot dog cart, or is it the trailer? Do we allow a trailer in? And we had to think about safety. If you put a trailer in a parking lot, now I got kids running. And so we really tried to put everything together, and kind of thought, you know what, we would like to see that part just left alone. Let families go there. If you want to have a lot of volleyball and boat launches and things to buy, you can go to Sandy Beach. And we addressed this specifically with Bartles, knowing, I mean, as a parks on a whole, we got a lot of parks that are going to change over the next couple of years. Wallace Park is changing. Rotary Park is going to change. Sandy Beach will change. And so we tried to look at the whole picture. And we said, I think it would be best left, just no vending. He doesn't, I mean, granted, he wants to go down there and not make money, and maybe it's branding or marketing and just seeing the kids, but we thought rather than try to control that, we'll leave Bartles as a pure, just let families go there, park. I think we looked at history, you know, 30 years ago, that was a great place to vend, but it was a different place. The building had a permit, you could use the building, you know, that it hasn't had vending in 25 years. I mean, this park's changed. The Commons Park had a cannon in it at one time, and you know, that was great, but liability says get it out of there. I think if you look far enough back in history, you'll see a really awesome slide down at the beach. Forget vending, bring back the slide. I would love to have a 30-step slide that goes into the lake.
There's an idea.
But times have changed, you know, and so we looked at Bartles and decided let's leave that one alone, and that's kind of where that came from. Pat did miss. We had the meeting. He did his presentation. He wanted to come back. Parks Board actually had the vote, and I talked to Pat because he wasn't there, and I said, well, they voted to send this to council. And I was going to try to bring it up. We had 3 meetings in a row that didn't, we ended up not having any. And I talked to Vicki, the chair, and I said, so, you know, what do you want, what should we do? And she said, well, literally protocol says, hey, look, we passed it to council, it should go there. And so that's when I called Pat a month ago and said, look, I'm going to send it up, and feel free to come on in, you know, give your spiel and meet us there. So I just felt like protocol said, send it in. So that's what we did.
At the onset of the meeting, a number of you said that you had been contacted and you had information. Is it possible for you to share some of that information from people contacting you?
Mr. President, before we get into all of that, could I please explain how the ordinance itself is structured? Because I think people are losing sight of what this language actually means.
Sure. In fact, please do.
Okay. The section that is being modified, where the language is being added that basically you can't have a vendor's license at Bartles Beach. But there are additional paragraphs underneath that one that isn't being modified, and it says at the end of the first paragraph, this chapter shall not apply to any of the following situations. You have 5 different situations where you're moving outside of vendors' licenses where things can happen in parks. This section that's being modified is only talking about somebody coming into City Hall, getting a vendor's license, and then they can go anywhere that they choose to within the city parks, except not at Bartles. And that was a decision, recommendation from the Parks Board. That doesn't mean that at no time can the city ever decide to bring in something at Bartles Beach, but you would do it through a separate paragraph, such as what we have with Rotary Park, Sandy Beach, and what we will be having eventually with Wallace Park. So it doesn't shut the door 100% to anything going on. That would be a council decision. What this does is it shuts the door for anybody walking into City Hall, getting a vendor's license for anything. It doesn't even have to be food, and setting up shop down at the beach. That's all this ordinance really does.
Well, can I ask a question? Then, but under section, which isn't being changed now, but under section 311.5, part C, the way it reads here, the second sentence says, "The licensee shall also be prohibited from selling merchandise within any public right-of-way which shall include public streets, tree lawns, sidewalks, and parking lots." Doesn't that exclude everything?
No, it doesn't exclude parks. It excludes streets.
But vendors can't vend at Sandy Beach because that's already belongs to the owner of Sandy Beach, they can't go and do it at Sandy Beach. Now we're saying they can't do it at Bartles Beach. What beach do you want them to do it at?
That's a council decision. That's not up to me.
What I
Okay.
believe she is saying is that if you as a council wanted to allow some type of vending at Bartles Beach, you could put an exclusion in that next paragraph. You could say that no one, so basically you would be saying no one can go get a vending license and go to Bartles Beach unless you put an exclusion into that next paragraph, where you would say, we are going to set up a contract like we do for Sandy Beach or Rotary Park for someone to do that. And that actually was brought up in my initial presentation to the park board, that you could do that and set up, I would recommend that it's for a series of days per week, not just you're going to be there on the hot days, Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, that if you're going to provide a service, that you detail what that service is going to be. I would assume something like that could be put up for bid, and then you just move ahead with that. I don't know how those other contracts were set up, but what she's referring to, that next paragraph, it does delineate exclusions to the vendor's code and how those are handled. So that could be done.
Right, so under the wording that's proposed, if you passed it, you could give an exclusive contract to somebody to be in the park. Now, the exception that Diane brought up is that you couldn't do it in the parking, in the right-of-way, which is where all the parking is there. He'd have to be up into the park somewhere. So you wouldn't be doing it in the right-of-way. To do it in the right-of-way, you need to carve out the privilege in the street. Because he would then be parking something in the street, then you'd have to give him something in that category rather than a,
I don't know of any other parks in the county that has, and there may be some, but I don't, off the top of my head, none of the other parks in the county have any concessions or any vendors. Other than Sandy Beach, there's nothing at Tyranina, there's nothing at North Beach, there's nothing at Elm Point, there's nothing at the park off of 12, I can't think of the name, little park. It's kind of near 89, or G, right before G. Anyways, I just don't know of any. And Gardens? Huh? Gardens. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, Personally, I like the beach the way it is. And I agree with the park board.
So it could be done. Is there more for Pat? We have more questions
Is
for
it,
Pat.
going back to an earlier question, is it possible to hear some of the input that you did receive?
I did not receive any.
But several of you said
I
that,
I received one letter from Tara Topol, and it actually, I was going to call Tara on it because she said, I'm a long time, there were two things in there. I mean, I know where she's coming from. I know her heart is. She wants to have vending down there, but she said, I think thousands and thousands of people miss vending down there, and it's been 30 years since we've had vending down there. But that was her letter. I'd like to see it down there again. I'd like to see, Pat down there, and that was the one I got.
yeah. I know from being there, the reaction we got from the community, from either the direct community or people visiting the community, was over the top. They just loved that we were there. However, one of the questions every time was, are you going to bring something else? Could you bring something else? Because it would make it so
And
much
that's-
more convenient for us.
That's part of where the park struggles with your
Well-
picture of the trailer.
Right.
It's huge. And
and-
it's a safety hazard in a parking lot. It takes up a lot of spaces. I don't think that's,
Which is why I was hoping to have a further discussion, because that is an option. It's not the only one. There's many things. You could do a total mobile setup where
Well-
you post, we're going to be there at this time and that time, and we'll bring things in. There's all types of options that are out there that you can do to service those people and improve the park. And, with all due respect, if it's not happening elsewhere, that doesn't mean that it can't happen here. And if we're going to make this town viable, and we're going to make this town more attracting to people to come here, then maybe we need to be the one that leads.
and I do want to take and make sure I make the point. We have a lot of families in this community who, aren't living with a lot of expendable income. And they go to that park and they don't want, nothing personal, they don't want someone vending so their kids can run up and go, Dad, I need some money. Dad, I need some money. Dad doesn't have the money. And so for those people, I would say, I want to leave a park somewhere where they can go to the beach. They can sit at Bartles at the beach, and the kids can be on the playground gym, and they're right there. They can bring their picnic lunch and spend exactly what they wanted to spend and not have to worry about a thing. No safety issues, no money issues. And so I want to think of them too. Like I said, all stakeholders were thought of, I think, at parks during our discussion, not just, the third graders had a mock council meeting the other night. And I would have to give credit to them, because the first thing they said, this subject came up, and the first thing they all did was, oh my, we don't want vending down there. What about the litter? They're going to get the lake all dirty, and I don't think we need it. And then now, towards the end of it, the teacher said, but you can get ice cream. And they all got excited, and they all voted for it, because obviously they could get ice cream. But, you know what, to begin the discussion, I think they were on the right road. They said, wow, why do we want that?
Again,
So, both sides, there's
Okay,
two sides to the
Again,
story.
with all due respect, I think we can make a case for the way we do business, to talk about us specifically. We run a pretty high volume down the street, and I would say we are cleaner than any place else in town.
Which, again-
And that would go with us, but those are also things that can be worked out, and stipulations that are put in, and expectations. So, I obviously believe very strongly in it. It's something we would go into knowing that our goals would be threefold. One would be to make an improvement for the community, 2, provide hours for students working, and 3, to try to keep losses at a minimum.
All right. Well, let me ask you, as long as you're here, try to keep losses to a minimum. I ran my own business for 11 years, and here's the thing, I didn't do it for fun money. I ran that business to pay my mortgage, my car payment, put food on the table, put my kids through school. I did it to make a profit, period. I did it for money. You continue to say, I'll lose money down there. Do you gain, what are you gaining? Is it marketing? Is it the
doing something-
branding?
it's
Is that what
doing-
you're gaining?
It's doing something positive for the community, and it's doing something positive for the students that we employ.
Okay.
And that is the number one thing we get out of it. Are there other places that we look at making money? Sure. We're a business. We have to do that in order
Yep.
to stay solvent. Is that an area that we feel we're giving back to the community? Absolutely.
And while on the one hand, I know you give back, I know you hire a lot of kids and you do well with them, but you're also a business. And so one of our discussions was, businesses have to make money, or you can't continue to lose money forever doing this. And so that was part of our discussion.
I think
know?
if you look at our business and the growth we're having, we're doing okay.
I'm sure you are, and that's what I'm saying. Is there maybe there's a saturation point? You're doing really well. I get it, but all those things were taken into consideration.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
question?
We got one email too, right, Misty?
Yes. That came in after 5 this evening. I'll just pass it. I make copies. That one.
That came
And then
into
we'll
the
put it in
city?
the record. And we'll put it in the record.
It just came into the city's email?
Yeah, I got it about 5:30.
Okay. Was there anything else for Pat? Anybody else, questions?
Well, I've got a question, not for
Not for
necessarily
Pat?
Pam.
All right, well, thank you, Pat, and then, what do you got?
Well, being new to the council, I guess my question is, there's in the ordinance, it says special permits for events in the park such as periodic festivals at Commons, Sandy Beach, and Rotary. Now, is there planning for concessions there? And if so, who gets them and what?
Well, what we're dealing with is specifically this. And like I said, the parks, we know Wallace Park is changing. There will be concessions there. We know Sandy Beach is changing. We know, so the only thing that this ordinance is dealing with is literally Bartles Beach. We're not, no other subject. I mean, we can, I guess, amend it, send it back to parks or do whatever. We can pass it, amend it, or send it, or reject it.
Or you could pass to the third reading at your next meeting. You don't have to take action tonight.
No,
Well, we
This is
have
second
no
reading.
intention of taking action, it's only the second reading, yeah.
right.
We can't,
You could,
Well, we
but
could,
you don't
but-
have to.
no. So, with that, we'll pass this to the third reading.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Okay, sorry.
It goes again.
I thought it was, well, it was the family, I was talking to the, sorry.
Okay, well, I guess one thing I want to point out, and I'm glad it's the second reading, because we do have 2 weeks for another
Yep.
meeting. And, there are a lot of people on these email things that say they would like to have something there. How about I give a challenge for those of you, we keep hearing that all these families don't want to have it, but we don't hear from any of the families that don't want to have it. And so, if I'm going to support something, I have to have a basis for supporting it. And right now, it doesn't tip that way for me. So if you've got some feelings in the public, pro or con,
One way or another.
we'd like to hear about it, because you can do it on email, you can call us personally, you can come to the next council meeting and express. But what we don't want is we don't want us to vote at the next meeting, and then all of a sudden, everybody comes out of the woodwork and says, well, I think that was a dumb decision they made. If you think it's a dumb decision, tell us before we vote that you think that. And if you like it, and you say, I think this is good, I'm glad we have a beach where we don't have anything being sold, I want to hear that. So let me just give that challenge.
And also, we have to remember that no matter which way the vote goes on it, yes or no, it doesn't close the door to any type of vending forever down there. Obviously, there's things that we can do if we see fit to put some vending down in there, so.
Well,
This-
and
this
I want
also-
to point out too that if vendors are allowed to sell at Bartles Beach, you can't just limit it to one. If you go into the route as in Sandy Beach where it's a contract, there's no guarantee Mr. Doyle is going to get that contract, so.
Correct.
I mean, and contrary to what was said earlier, this council is not business unfriendly. We have bent over backwards for businesses, this council. That's all I got. I'm ready to go.
Anything else?
Can I just address just that one? And I totally agree with you. This, going back to our statement I read earlier, This is not about allowing Doyle's Dog specifically to vend at Bartles Beach. This is about offering a service to the citizens and visitors of Lake Mills that would enhance their Bartles Beach experience. That's what it's about.
Yeah, and as it stands right now, if anybody came in and got a vendor's license, with the wording it is right now, they could walk down to Bartles Beach and start selling whatever.
No, they can't, because we don't let vendors vend.
They could let them go down there, yeah, right now.
And that, again, that was part of our discussion too with the ice cream cart and knowing he really wasn't making money. So then do you just let 5 different vendors go down there? One guy's got ice cream, 1 hot dogs, and they go kind of at will? When do I want to go down for 2 hours? You know, it's not set really in any kind of time frame. They go in and out whenever they want, and that's kind of, we don't really want that either.
Yeah, you get down there, all the parking spots are taken from
Then
vendors,
you
so.
can't legally do it on the parking lot, you can't
Right.
legally do it on the tree lawn.
Yep.
So now we gotta take away part of the park for
Yep.
vendors.
And I'll tell you, that was, you know, the building that was there was a perfect setup, but it's no longer, you know, the fire, rebuild, rezoning, that's not an option at this point. And putting stuff, we just thought, well, we'll pass this to a 3rd reading. And, recommendations for future agendas, anybody? We're adjourned.